Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Impact Marketing Summit. I brought together some of the world's top marketing experts to share with you their new age marketing strategies and techniques that will literally change the way you perceive and implement marketing in your day-to-day business. My name is Vamsi Pannala, and right now I'm delighted to be speaking with Steve Larsen. For 2 years, Steve Larsen has been the lead funnel builder at ClickFunnels for Russell Brunson and put over 500 sales funnels under his belt, but honestly lost track a while ago. Eventually, he left ClickFunnels as an employee to get his own 2 Comma Club award, and his business crossed $1 million 13 months later. His podcast, Sales Funnel Radio, was created to share best practices, teach the finer points of marketing, offer creation, and funnelology. Steve's approach to offers are so attractive that fanboys body check their own grandmas just to buy, and long walks on the beach aren't his thing, but he loves slapping five. Steve, welcome to the summit.
Hey, thanks for having me very much. I appreciate you. I wrote that bio forever ago. I think I need to do some updating on it. The body check and the grandma part thing, I probably should take that out. Just a goofball heart, but thanks for having me on here. I really appreciate it. It's interesting. New age marketing. I've got several notes here. I was just pulling them up just a moment ago, but it's interesting when we think about new age marketing. And, when I first got started in the game, I think one of the biggest challenges I had, and most people do, is they just don't know what to sell. And I remember specifically, I was in college. I think I was on try 17 or 18. It took me 34 tries over 5 years to really get one to blow up. And then since then, I was like, oh, this is how the game works. And they've all, for the most part, been rather successful. But those first 34, that's a lot of tries, and when I look back to see like the mistakes I was making and why something works versus not works, it's very, very clear. Hindsight is 20/20. And I look backwards, I'm like, oh, and I remember I was walking around studying these marketing books, but didn't have anything to sell myself yet. So I'm like, oh, when I have my thing, this will be a great experience. When I have my thing, I'll know exactly how I'm going to market it, but I don't have a thing. What is the thing I'm actually going to go sell? And so I kept walking around, and it kind of became a whip. I'd walk around and I would basically ask myself, like, what should I sell? What should I sell? How come they can figure that out and I can't? How come they can figure it out and I can't? And it was like, it's kind of a whip, and I, to be honest, kind of beat myself up. Why can't I think about this? What's wrong with you, Stephen? That was a very legitimate, conversation I'd have with myself. And honestly, if you're watching or listening to this now, you've probably experienced the same. And I want you to know that starting out with this right now, before I really dive into it, if you can just take a moment to understand the truth behind, it's one of my favorite principles. The principle is questions invite revelation. I will always answer what I ask. Therefore, I must be careful what I ask. And so what I realized, and I didn't know this back then, but as I look backwards, that's why I'm so big on questions. Because if I change the question, I get a different answer. So I have to be careful what I ask myself and how. And asking myself constantly, what should I sell? What should I sell? What should I sell? I didn't really get tons of answers. I got a bunch of like stuff that I thought would be neat to sell, but didn't really sell very well. It wasn't until I changed the question that I got a different answer.
Yeah.
And instead, it was really what all marketing starts at, which is I ask the question, who do I want to sell? And by understanding the person that I want to go sell, it got a lot easier for me to figure out what to sell, because I just looked at their issues. And suddenly the whole game started shifting for me, and I started recognizing how this all works. Now I'll tell you that over there's hundreds of funnels that I've helped put out, and lots on my own, and brought to cross, I always hate saying the numbers, but about to cross $6 million in 2.5 years. And as I look back, since I left ClickFunnels, and as I look back to see how, what patterns have actually made the game work for me, there's really only like 2 skill sets that get you paid, right? When I started working for Russell, this is a humbling story too, and I'll tell you just to set this up just a little bit more. When I started working for Russell, he and I were building all these funnels. We're building funnels for, I remember we were doing stuff for Marcus Lemonis on CNBC, and we're doing stuff for these guys. I mean, huge people. I will tell you that most of the time the funnels didn't work. And meaning after the launch, nothing happened with them. And even if they did launch, there still was not a lot of stuff that really happened with them. And I remember thinking like, that's crazy. That's dumb. That's crazy. Can can you imagine if Russell and I built you a funnel? Like, what, you know, and I remember thinking about that, like, but all the while, and I'm just going to be super vulnerable here, for the first like 6, 7, 8, 9 months, I was broke.
Okay.
Personally. Russell Brunson's lead funnel builder at ClickFunnels, personally rather broke still. Wait a second. So he wants me to build the funnels. Look how much money he's making. What skill sets are actually causing cash here? And so I'm going to say, like, new age marketing, one of the biggest traps we fall into is the belief that we need to know how to build a funnel. Not true at all. The funnel is not a revenue generating activity, funny enough. It was all this other stuff that Russell was over there doing, which is marketing activities, launching, getting visibility, campaigns. Those are the things that actually cause cash. I think of the funnel as kind of a catcher's mitt, right? It catches the effects of marketing, but it's not marketing itself. And when we think about funnels in that manner, you start to realize like what marketing really is, and how funny it is that we even will think that there's a difference between marketing now versus marketing 100 years ago. So a few key little pieces here with this. So there's a critical role that each rich marketer has had, right, when building a funnel. And one of my favorite stories here is from David Ogilvy. And in the 1950s, David Ogilvy was approached by Dove soap, and they said, "Hey, David Ogilvy, you're amazing. If you don't know who that is and you're watching and listening to this now, he's one of the most famous copywriters in the world. Since passed on, but he has set precedents for a lot of how we write copy today and sell things. And in the 1950s, right, Dove comes to him and says, "Hey, come sell soap." And he was like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And he goes, "We're thinking about positioning our soap as somewhat of like a men's deodorant." I think that's what they're going to do. Don't quote me on that. And David Ogilvy looks at Dove soap and he goes, "Oh my gosh, no, don't go do that. That's crazy." So what he did, and this is what marketers do. The first thing that he did is he went and he created positioning. Positioning is when you make something new in the eyes of the customer. And so what he did is he looked at Dove soap and he made this commercial where this woman, you actually can still see it on YouTube. They put, the commercials are up there. They have this woman, it's all black and white commercials, you know, and half of the face, they're like, "On one side of your face, put Dove. Notice how they always say the like rolling R's. Notice how creamy it is, you know, those kinds of things. It's creamy. It's amazing. It's like, you're going to love it. Then go ahead and put normal soap on the right side of your face. Notice how dry. Notice how cracked it is. Dove cleans while it creams." I think that's what their thing was. And so what he did is, this is a very key piece, and like, make sure again, if you're watching this, everyone like stick with me for a moment, because I'm going to go through a few principles here on what really new age marketing requires. One of the first things that he did was he created positioning. It's not soap, it's Dove. And that's what he would tell everybody. But is Dove soap? Yeah. So when I go to the soap market and I go to everybody who buys soap and I say, "Here's this product," it's not soap, it's Dove. It's a moisturizer. It'll clean your skin, but it's not really a moisturizer. Suddenly, you are different than everyone else that's soap.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy. This is brand new. I've never seen this before." And then what he did is he created story. So this is like super key. Very same things that you go do in a marketplace today. You're going to create positioning in relation to the market you're selling to. How can it be different? How can it be new? And literally one of the ads that he put out had a bar of soap with an X through it. Said, "It's not soap," and then beneath it had Dove. Does it actually clean? Yes, but it's the way he positioned it, right? So first of all, he created the positioning, and then the second thing he did is he created story. And they had this really interesting ad, which back in that day was probably very sensual. You know, it's a woman in a bathtub with a phone, and she's talking to her husband, and it basically says something to the effect of, "Darling, I'm having the most incredible experience ever. I was getting ready for the day to go out with my girlfriends, and while getting ready, I tripped. I slipped. I fell in the tub. Dove soap fell in with me. I haven't been able to get out of bed all day, or get out of the tub all day, and I feel fantastic. It's amazing." Oh, ha, ha, ha. You know, it's like, and so what they're doing is they're selling relationships, but you're buying Dove, and it's not soap, it's Dove. So this is one of the most key pieces today. And this is why I think it's interesting. Like, new age marketing is still the same as old age marketing. They didn't have the internet back then. They didn't have any of those things. We're creating positioning. We're creating story. Now we just have some modalities to push those messages farther and faster than before. There's so much distribution. We can get in front of more people. So I think the mistake is to think that it's different. One of my favorite things to do is to study old, rich, dead marketers because who didn't have the internet. I just go learn their patterns. And I understand that that's what campaigns are. That's what marketing is. Those are noise generating activities. But then when you apply the internet, then it's powerful. Yeah. To think that the internet is what marketing is one of the biggest mistakes that people make today, I would say. Anyway, I got a million examples on this. But this whole concept though, so again, if you're taking notes with this, which I recommend that you do, again, the first thing you're wanting to do is you got to know who you're selling. You have to know the marketplace that you're selling to. And you have to know the positioning with that market. And then finally, one of the things that most key pieces as well is this whole idea of telling a story. What's the story you're going to create of the experience people will have using that product? And I don't care if it's physical that you sell. I don't care if it's digital, brick and mortar, on the internet. If you need high ticket phone sales, if it's like multi-stage, multi-million-dollar corporate to corporate contracts, this is why we buy, right? We purchase. Someone is still experiencing these buying emotions throughout. And the mistake is to think that just because it's a $7 product versus a $7 million product, that it's different. Still the same process. Again, some of the speeds of purchase might be different. And so anyway, I just want to point that first off. Again, number one, know how to position. Number two, know how to tell story. And that's no different than years ago. Which is super powerful. So shifting phases, is that cool? Going to my next piece here. Here's another famous story I really, really love. I'm just trying to think the best way to set this one up here. Okay, you know what? I got one right here. This also drives me a little bit crazy. P.T. Barnum, amazing guy. Hollywood made a movie called The Greatest Showman. You've probably seen it. It's a great movie. It was a lot of singing, dancing. I actually love musicals. I sang in musicals and leads growing up. A lot of people don't know that about me. I played the drums, played the piano. I'm a very musical guy. And so I saw the movie Greatest Showman. I was like, this is an amazing movie. You go study his life, a little different than it was portrayed in the movie. He was an interesting dude. But brilliant marketer, right? Internet's not around, obviously. And a lot of the things that he did, it's very against the law now. So don't do these things, but just hear what he had to go through. In the way we think about P.T. Barnum, we think about his zoo, right? His circus, right? He's got the circus, the P.T. Barnum circus. Funny enough, that was his retirement project. Mm-hmm. He actually, that's not really what he did. Yeah. P.T. Barnum was known for his museum. Yeah. And he had this ridiculous, amazing museum. The circus came way later on in his life. It's just kind of a fun side thing. Yeah. And what he had was this museum. Well, one day, and a lot of you guys might have heard this story as well, but one day, this was in 1842, a mermaid was caught off the coast of Fiji. Oh my gosh, so exciting. A mermaid, you know. And so these guys go and they bring it to P.T. Barnum in New York, which is where he was. They brought it to him and they go, P.T., check this out. We caught a mermaid off the coast of Fiji. And P.T. Barnum looks at it and goes, that looks like the top half of a monkey sewed to the bottom half of a fish. Because it was. But no one really knew that. It's very disturbing pictures. You can see them on Wikipedia. It's still up there. But he got an idea. He's like, this might increase sales for my museum. Yeah. So he created this whole hoax. And what he did is he started leaking letters to the press between him and a fake doctor about the validity of this Fiji mermaid. Oh my gosh, this Fiji mermaid. And they started leaking letters from various locations to the press and started creating this buzz and this story around the press. Again, he's totally lying his face off. Like, this is not ethical at all. The FTC was not around then, right? And so make sure you're following the law. But just listen to what he did, because there's still valid principles behind this. And this is how I've made a lot of my cash, okay? Behind the principle behind this. So what he did is he actually got this fake doctor who was an associate of his to, like I said, go back and forth between the press and leak these letters. Well, what he did is he had the doctor travel to Philadelphia and check into a hotel, right? So now first step, the press is starting to hear about this. It's time for phase 2. Fake doctor goes to Philadelphia and checks into a hotel. And as a thank you to the landlord for letting him stay there, he decides to show the good landlord the Fiji Mermaid, right? And he pulls back the Fiji Mermaid and shows the landlord. And the landlord's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. The landlord was friends with tons and tons of newspaper editors. Yeah. They knew that. They did their homework. They literally Dream 100'd the landlord. And so he said, if you'd like to bring a lot of your friends by as well to come see it, that's fine with me. I just don't want anyone else. Well, the guy invites all of his editor friends, and he starts coming on in, and they have all these editors come in, and they're starting to write stories. So now they have a lot of buzz in New York, and they're getting a lot of editor buzz in Philadelphia, just, a couple miles down the road, which is interesting. While that's going on, back in New York, P.T. Barnum decides that he's going to go literally litter 10,000 leaflets of mermaid pictures around New York City. And so he's going around and just dropping off all of these Fiji Mermaid things. And they look absolutely nothing like the real thing. Yeah. But what he does, though, is on the leaflet that he's littering all over the place, he tells everybody, like, hey, this mermaid is going to be available for your viewing pleasure from this date, time, and location to this date, time, and location, and after that, it will be taken off. That is one of the first major pieces of campaign building, is you have to choose a date, time, and location for people to go buy your thing, and you need to be able to tell them when it's no longer available. It's one of the most key principles on how I've made a lot of my sales. And so while he's building this buzz, the buzz is in the direction of the date, the time, and location. So everyone, again, watching this, stick with me here for just a moment. I'll wrap up the story, and we'll walk through the major principles here. Okay, so he's going around, and he's basically like spreading the fact that it's coming. The Fiji Mermaid is coming. Oh my gosh, you're going to get a chance to see this thing. P.T. Barnum's not done. Right before the doors open to go get this, see the mermaid, he goes to each of the newspaper editors, and he goes, I'm going to give you guys exclusive coverage on the Fiji Mermaid. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. He's like, yeah, just make sure you show up, exclusive coverage. Now, he lied. Don't do this. He went to the next newspaper and the next one. He went to every single newspaper and told everyone they'd have exclusive coverage. And they showed up, and because they didn't want to be the one newspaper that didn't cover it, everybody covered it. And he got publishing and press all over the place. His museum got ridiculous traction, and tons of people came in. And what was funny is that he made a note of it. He's like, well, what happens when people see that the picture you clearly put out of a female Fiji mermaid is this top of a monkey sewed to the bottom of a fish? It's kind of disturbing to look at. He said it was funny because he's looking at him, and people saw it was a hoax and it was a joke, and they were laughing, and that was it. That he fooled the public, and they were in on it, and it was great. And there's a very famous quote from him that I like. He says, without promotion, something terrible happens. Nothing. And the big thing I want to just bring out with this is that if you've chosen, like I said, you've got positioning, and you've got people you've got story, there is almost no strategic advantage of you for quite a while to just sit and continue to look at your sales funnel. All revenue generating activities are the things that happen prior to it, right? Now, P.T. Barnum clearly lied. I mean, he did a bunch of stuff. He was living on the edge there, right? He was doing all stuff that isn't quite ethical, especially for nowadays. But compare how many things and little activities he did and put together and orchestrated compared to like what people do today, and they just go turn on a Facebook ad and wonder why their funnel didn't work. Yeah. It's like most of the time, the funnels I've looked at, there's always things you can change. That's usually not why they're not working, though. It's usually because no one knows about it. There hasn't been any promotion. There's no sales-based noise. Yeah. There's no attention-getting activities in front of the funnel, fueling the funnel. Yeah. And so when you think about that, and you think about today, new age marketing, what's really happening is people are focusing too much on tech, on the funnel page itself. I'm not saying not to get good at those things, but it's not why you make the cash, right? It's why I was broke for a while when I was Russell's funnel guy, and I was real good at building funnels. When I started making millions of bucks was when I started no longer obsessing on the funnel and instead focusing on these front end activities that fuel the funnel, right? That's why they work, because I work, right? And the funnel is just that thing capturing the effects of my marketing. And so when you think about that, again, and think about what most people do today, they'll think through and think like, oh man, it's all about how you post and when you post. And it's like, yeah, that stuff is good. But what I'm really looking for is mini events, things in front of it that cause and drive traffic in the direction of the funnel. And that's the big key. So a Facebook ad might be part of that. It might not, though. I don't really actually buy that many ads in my business because I found other ways to cause that sales-based noise. And I'll say, again, one other thing with this. I don't know, I'm talking a lot here. You got me on a roll. But one of the mistakes that people make is they think about a funnel that it's a series of pages.
Yeah.
Funnels have existed forever.
Good.
A funnel is not pages. A funnel is nothing more than an offer and a message.
Yeah.
So if I stand on a stage and I deliver a message and an offer, I'm the funnel. Right? When I was a door-to-door salesman, right, I'm the delivery of the funnel.
Yeah.
I'm saying a message and I've got an offer. And so that's why I laugh when people are like, I've never had a funnel. I'm like, have you had a sale ever? You had a funnel. You just didn't build it with intent, which is why it wasn't awesome. But keeping that in mind helps us when we think about new age marketing. There's a lot of tools that get us big noise. There's a lot of tools that get us great, amazing distribution, but it's a mistake to think that the tool, that's the reason why you have the success, or the reason that the pages are in an exact specific certain way. It's like, understand the principle of you have a message, you have an offer, you put it on pages, right, in ClickFunnels, which is my favorite because it's measurable. It's the same. It's automatable. It does so much for you. It's a powerhouse. But you don't make the money because of that. You make the money because of everything in front of it. And that's really, in my opinion, just like old age marketing, new age marketing is the exact same.
Steve, you also talk about a lot of times about the storytelling part, and especially the book story that you always talked about. Would you be able to comment a couple of things on that? Maybe the story itself would be great.
Yeah. So, let me get the book.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. I'm not sure where that is actually. Well, so, a little while ago, and again, this goes back to why. Well, I'll say it later. When I was just starting out in this game, it was probably around try 8. My wife at the time, she and I were having a very heart-to-heart conversation, and we were at a $1 menu date night. Very poor, very broke, living on loans, and we were trying to figure out how to make it. She was asking if I would go get a job, and I was saying, no, I'm an entrepreneur, and she was asking, okay, you have this new idea. Is this the one? All right, it's that heart-wrenching question every new entrepreneur has to deal with from loved ones, which is understandable. I got no judgment towards her for that. What would you say to somebody who took 34 tries to get one to work? You'd be like, you're psycho. Go get a job. It's clearly not working. I don't blame anyone for saying what they have to me. But I just knew I had the dream and the vision. I didn't want to give up. So anyways, around try 8. And is this the one that's going to work? I'm like, oh yeah, babe, I got you, right? This is it. Ain't nothing but a thing. I will provide. Right. And I wasn't. And, and on the inside, I was like, I don't know. I hope this is the one that's going to work. Well, I'm walking out of out of campus the next day, and it's kind of raining and drizzling and stuff. And I was in the military for a little while, so I walked fast. And I was walking down the sidewalk, and I look down the road, and I see this old gentleman way off he's in the distance, sitting on a bench. And it had a little covering around it, so it wasn't getting wet or anything, but he was reading something. And I see him, and I'm like, I just observe it, and I'm walking, and I'm getting closer and closer, and this little scene starts to unfold in front of me. The rain slows down, sky kind of parts a little bit. It wasn't raining super hard anyway, but slightly misting, and starts to part a little bit, a little blue sky. And this older gentleman is reading a book, and he's sitting on the park bench there, next to the street, but it's covered up. And this limo pulls up all of a sudden in front of him. Right there. And this dude gets out, this driver with just incredibly nice posture, right? Very nice posture. And he walks around the front, goes and he opens the door for the gentleman and does this little half bow and then looks over and smiles. And they exchange glances and he gets up. And the older gentleman goes to sit down. And I'm getting pretty close now to this whole scene as I'm walking. And the driver, they exchange some words, and the driver goes to close the door, and something in me says, run. And so I start tearing down, and I throw my hand right in the door. Boom. Right as soon as it's about to go and close. Ouch, hurt. But I stop, and I'm like, okay. Like, oh my gosh. How you doing? And they realize, you know, hey, I'm not there to hurt them or anything. I catch my breath. Hey, how you doing? You know, and I go, hey, I know that you are clearly very wealthy. Guy was wearing a suit that, I mean, his watch alone is more than I'd made the year before. You know what I mean? Just made of wealth. Humble man, but clearly very well off. And his driver's picking him up from a park, you know. And I said, how did you get this? It's not that I'm not trying. How'd you do it? I'm trying. I'm launching. I'm not dabbling either. I'm walking down Main Street trying to sell my products. Like I'm actively moving forward. How'd you do it? I'm sure people ask you. And he kind of goes, yeah, people ask me that. And what he does is he has the book in his hands that he was reading on the bench. And he goes, well, it's this book. He said, if you read this book for 20 minutes a day and apply it for 40 minutes a day right after that, only read for 20 minutes, then you apply for 40. He said, you will not recognize your life in 2 years from now. This is the book. And that was 4 years ago. Gave me the book, closed the door, drove off, never saw him again. Changed my life. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, you know, so I'm reading the book and I'm going through and I'm applying it. I'm starting to see like, oh my gosh, like this stuff is working. And my life starts to change and things start to happen and come together. Since then, now this story is a pretty famous story since then. So the author and we've been in contact and we've been chatting. And it's fascinating what has happened. So he lets me give out copies of his book whenever we like to. And since you brought it up, I'd like to do the same for your audience, you know? And so I'm allowed to give the actual copy. So I'll tell you guys where to do that in a second. You get the actual copy of the book, and then you get the audio book, because I'm not amazing at I'm a good reader. I just read slowly because I stop and I think about everything. You know, so sometimes I listen to audiobooks when I need to finish consuming. So I'll give you guys the physical book. We'll tell you, we'll ship it on out to you. We'll give you guys the audio book, and then we have a checklist so that you know how to apply each of the things. And then every 6 months, he and I do a very small in-person event in his house to help groups of 20 apply what they had read.
Okay.
And so we'll do the same thing for your audience too. So you'll get the book, you get the audio book, and then a checklist on how to apply each chapter, as well as the first 20 of you guys. We'll open it up for you guys. So we'll tell you guys where that is, but basically you get a chance. It's in 6 months so that you have a chance to go through all this stuff, which makes sense. Yeah. We'll go ahead and we'll drop that link here in just a second. But yeah, it's the book, audio book, checklist, and then first 20 of you guys only. We'll have you guys come on over. You get a free ticket to come to his. It's literally his living room, which is why it's 20 people. So anyway, let's go and drop that link. Oh. Let's just pause for a second, and I want you to feel the feelings you're feeling right now. I know we're on a summit. I usually do this in live audiences, but what are you experiencing right now? Anyone want to, first of all, some confusion maybe, but there's that little bit of angst. You're like, where am I supposed to go, Steve? Like, oh my gosh, where am I supposed to do this? Right? Like, oh, I need to know where this is. The whole story's made up, guys. I've never read this book. It's a random one off my shelf. Okay, it's the only story I tell. It's a lie. But you have to understand, I've never read this book. Why do you want to buy it? Like, what are you experiencing right now? The purpose of sales messages is emotion. We buy because of emotion, not because we follow a script to a T, right? Think about this. What parts in the story are most interesting to you? Probably the dollar menu date night. Some of you guys, this is not try one for you. And I say that in there. There's some mentor that's on there. And so what do? When we're studying markets, I'm going in. I'm not just trying to figure out what to sell. I'm trying to figure out why others are also buying. What are the scripts? What are the stories? What are the things? tell true stories. This is the only story I tell. Russell Brunson, he reached out, he goes, dude, you got to stop telling that fake book story. No one's going to believe the real stories you tell. And I was like, well, I'll just tell the same fake one over and over again. So this is now coined as the fake book story. It's literally on YouTube, a lot of places. But I've had stage rushes. Most people, the moment I hold the book up, start buying on Amazon before I even drop an offer. And the reason I bring this up is because did I tell anyone on the summit the chapters of the book? No, they don't know the chapters of the book. I've never read the book. Did I tell you all the enthusiastic thumbs up and reviews of all the quotes on the back? No. Why do you want it? You want it because of the sales message, the story. Funny enough, thanks for asking me to tell it, because it's such a powerful lesson. Because when people sit back and they're like, Steven, I'm not going to launch yet because my offer's not done. I'm like, well, that's not why they buy anyway. I understand the fear. That's not why they buy. If you don't spend just as much time crafting the message, the sales message, the story that sells it, as you do the actual thing itself, you are already destined to fail, especially in new age marketing. We do not buy products. We purchase emotions. Sales messages create a promise, and offers fulfill on the promise that the sales message made. And that's why you do both at the exact same time. This is like, it's such a huge deal. And that's why it's a mistake when you walk around 24/7 and ask like, what should I buy? Or what should I sell? What should I sell? What should I sell? It's like, let's understand who do you want to sell? What are they experiencing? What stories are causing them to purchase? Do I have a real story that I could tell that also causes that emotion? Now let's figure out what to sell. What do they actually want to purchase from you? And it's one of the most powerful, it's one of the biggest gifts I feel like I could give to the marketplace, that story, because it helps you understand what marketing really is. It has very little to do with the product, very little. It has everything to do with turning the product to an offer and delivering it, which is everything I've said, positioning, the story. You got to create campaigns. The internet can be a crutch if you don't do those things. It will be a huge accelerator if you do those things I've mentioned today here with you guys. Thanks for having me on, man. This has been fun.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's been a pleasure, to have you on my summit. You just made this summit. You've just taken it to the other level, and people who are watching it right now, I'm sure maybe some of them would have heard what you said before, but this is going to come in front of a lot of new crowd, and I'm sure people who are watching it right now would have had their aha moments. And again, I just want to thank you for coming. I'm sure your time is so precious, but you decided to be on the summit and support all of us, and share the value that you wanted to in the form of the topic that you have just covered. So thank you once again, and all the best with everything that you're doing. I know you're getting up a new office in Boise, so people who are following you, I know it's coming up really fast. So we look forward to taking a look at the tour of the office in some time.
Oh, thank you so much. The world is amazing and full of hope. And thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Steve. Yeah.
Bye-bye.